that made me realize like, oh, I just need to do it differently. The way that this isn't wrong. It's just not right for me. So I needed to try a lot of different things to find out what was right for me.
ADHD Rewired, episode 430. This is the podcast for those of us with really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. I'm Eric Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker by training and a coach by design. I'm your host, and I have ADHD. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. We are a community. We are wired for connection, and you are not alone. Go to ADHDrewired.com to learn how you can join us in our free and secret Facebook group. Get additional resources for every episode, including links to any resources we mention on today's show. You can support us on Patreon, sign up for our email newsletter. You can request podcast postcards to distribute to your clients and support groups. Learn all about our award-winning coaching and accountability groups. You can co-work with us in our Adult Study Hall virtual membership community. You can do all of these things by going to our website at ADHDrewired.com. We know that starting is the hardest part, so let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of ADHD Rewired. Today's guest is Lorin Devine. Lorin grew up in the cornfields of rural Illinois and has been driven to create and explore and forage for her own way. In adulthood, she struggled to find footing in a world where she felt like she never quite fit. In 2014, Lorin entered the world of tattooing. After 4 years in a busy walk-in studio, she left Illinois to spend 18 months on the road as a guest in more than 25 tattoo studios throughout the U.S. and Europe. Halting travel in 2020 led to ADHD diagnosis and a framework to understand years of straining to conform to a neurotypical world. Lorin is now based out in Portland, Oregon, where she is creating illustrative black and gray tattoos in a private studio, finding support in the ADHD community and the autonomy to curate her tattoo practice toward supporting a neurodivergent brain has empowered her to create the best possible work for her clients. Lorin, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. I'm so happy to be here.
How did you find 25 different studios to go to?
Well, I was lucky enough to travel with my partner, who I share a studio with here in Portland, and he'd traveled tattooing for some time prior. So he was very well networked. And while I reached out and arranged things at many shops, we did work at a lot of the shops that he had already established relationships with.
Like a lot of adults in the ADHD community who were always kind of misfit in all the different scenarios and environments. You were also identified when you were a kid as being gifted, right? Right. And so when things got hard for you, what were the messages that you got?
I think that having been categorized as a gifted child was definitely a blessing and a curse, because I know that the adults in my life identified that I was creative and I had a lot of great strengths. But unfortunately, at the same time, I think my struggles kind of fell by the wayside. And that kind of made me feel like, if I was having a hard time with something, it was just because I wasn't trying hard enough. I needed to work harder, or that maybe I was lazy. So, it created a lot of internalized shame.
And I think so many people experience that. It's, if you're so smart, like if you just tried, it's that just word. It's like, well, you just don't get it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So you said that it was pre-pandemic when you realized that you had ADHD? Yeah,
that's right. Well, actually, no, it was amid the pandemic. I've definitely struggled with depression and anxiety throughout my life, but I just went on assuming throughout life that, I was an anxious person, or, I was a person who just struggled with major depressive disorder. Once I left my home state of Illinois and started traveling, a lot of the things that I hadn't realized I had built around me to support myself and my environment, things that I was doing to mask really, were no longer available to me. I was always very meticulous about meal prepping, for example. So like when I would work at the shop I learned how to tattoo in, I would always make sure that I had lots of snacks, lots of food to eat. And then traveling on the road, having like a solid diet really just fell apart.
Mhm.
If I don't eat, my executive dysfunction just completely takes over. So that was really ratcheting up the anxiety that I was experiencing. And I started to have frequent panic attacks. I didn't know what was happening at the time, but finally I ended up getting diagnosed with panic disorder. And then I kind of put off taking care of that because I was on the road, and it's like, how do you see somebody to deal with this when I'm traveling from city to city constantly? So when the pandemic happened and I was forced to kind of stay in one place, I was able to actually connect with a clinician and start digging and going like, what is causing this? What's really going on?
So you were on the road, and it was through kind of seeing some of the supports that you had created for yourself that the symptoms of your ADHD that you didn't know at the time started to sort of magnify. You're having panic attacks. You were able to find a clinician, right?
Right. I had never realized just how huge of a role routine played in keeping me on track. And, when you're traveling full time, you're not sleeping well. It's almost impossible to eat well. I wasn't exercising, which has long been a thing that keeps my ADHD symptoms at bay. So like all of those things, I stopped doing at once. And the anxiety that came in, the panic symptoms that came in place of that were very, very intense and overwhelming.
So you found a good therapist to work with. You got diagnosed with ADHD. Then what? Everything was easy after that, right?
I wish I could say that. No, having been diagnosed at the age of 32, I'll be 34 this year. There's like grief that comes with that.
Absolutely.
Going, like what would have happened if I would have been seen when I was younger? How could things have been different? And I'm careful not to spend too much time in that space.
And especially it's normal and healthy to visit that space, right?
Right. But as one is, I am somewhat prone to rumination. And so I don't want to spend too much time being upset about what could have been, but instead I really try to extend compassion to my younger self in all the ways that I struggled, because I used to feel like a lot of self-loathing for, just the struggles that I had in my adolescence and especially in my early 20s. But now that I have that awareness, and thankfully now that I've been tattooing for enough time that I'm, fairly well established, I can build my world the way that I need it to be, at least within my own studio space. And that has changed my work life so much.
That's amazing, Lorin. One of the things we talk about in our coaching programs is the importance of bending the world to you. And it sounds like you really are doing that. And I know that there are so many of our listeners who are creatives and they're entrepreneurs, and you can be a creative in whatever field, whatever your sort of medium is. The role of modifying our environment as part of how we manage our ADHD, it cannot be overstated, the importance of that. I saw a graphic once it was in a presentation where it was showing that 80% of sort of like those quote unquote behavioral management pieces for managing ADHD is just all about managing the environment. That's huge. That is huge. So I want to hear a little bit more about how you kind of have created an environment that is more suited for you. And I know that one of the things that we want to do together here is actually explore some of the struggles that you shared with me about time perception. What we're going to do first is take a quick break. So we will be right back. Are you tired of being overwhelmed, feeling stuck, feeling like your ADHD just keeps winning? Are you ready to go from listening to ADHD Rewired to actually getting your ADHD rewired? Then come join us this summer for ADHD Rewired's award-winning coaching and accountability groups. Registration is going on now. If you missed our first 2 registration events, it's not too late. Go now to coachingatrewired.com to join our next registration event this Thursday, May 26th at 12 p.m. Central. That's Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Registration is by invitation only. We will also have additional dates on the website if you are hearing this after this week. So to get your invitation, go to coachingrewired.com and get your name on our interest list and watch your email for instructions.
Before this group, I thought I had to do this alone or with the support of other neurotypical people around me.
When this coaching group came up, I had just moved out of my house. I was a mess, like a hot mess.
Before this group, I doubted my ability to grow.
I decided to join this group because I couldn't be alone anymore.
Before this group, I worried a lot about being perceived as too needy.
I thought in order to grow and make progress, I'd always have to mask and explain to people what I was struggling with or what I needed help with.
I was newly diagnosed just about a year and a half ago, and I had lived so many years doing the best I could.
I realized that I feel safe coming to these sessions. I don't carry any apprehension or anxiety about showing up and not being enough.
The thing I'm most proud of is that in the middle of some pretty intense chaos in my personal life and not knowing really what's going to happen in the future, having kind of the rug pulled out from under me, that I'm still here.
I'm most proud of this group. Everyone here has worked so hard, been so courageous, let themselves be vulnerable, let themselves be supported by others, and also just support each other. So I'm proud of all of us.
The diagnosis really just opened a door to a whole host of resources that I didn't ever know was there for me. This course seemed to be the holy grail.
My biggest takeaway is that it's okay to be me. It's okay to need support in ways that others don't. And it's okay to celebrate things that I'm proud of, no matter what anyone else thinks.
Now I feel a lot more comfortable with voicing things that I need or being able to just talk about what is or is not working and not bringing too much judgment into that.
The thing that I learned was I have a place in this world.
What I did not expect was that other people would follow through in putting cherry tomatoes up their nose. Usually it's just me. And so I knew I was among my people.
To be around these people that think like I do, it's just such a relief to know that you're not alone, that you might not think like everybody around you, but you certainly think like a bunch of people that are in the world.
If you want to learn how to better manage your time, take charge of your calendar, and make it work for you, create a to-do list that prioritizes your goals and your self-care, all while having a supportive community of like-brained adults with ADHD growing with you, then we'd love to have you. Go now to coachingrewired.com to sign up to receive your invitation so you can join us for our next summer registration event coming up this Thursday, May 26th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. If you missed that, go to the website to find future dates for our registration events. This summer, join me or one of our amazing coaches with sessions starting at 6, 7, 10, 11, and 12 p.m. Pacific. That's 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 1 p.m., 2 p.m., and 3 p.m. Eastern. We even have a time zone conversion chart at the website. So head on over to coachingrewired.com and click on that teal button at the top of the page to sign up for this week's summer registration event on May 26th. Registration is by invitation only. So that's coachingrewired.com to start your registration process. Once you've confirmed your email, you'll receive instructions with everything you'll need to do to submit before receiving your invitation. After 10 weeks, I can promise you that you will still have ADHD. But between me, our other amazing coaches, peer mentors, and our growing alumni community, we can assure you that you will not have to continue on your growth journey alone. There really is nothing more impactful than a community that both supports you and understands you. Take the leap and kickstart your personal growth by going to coachingrewired.com to get registered for our next summer registration event this Thursday, May 26th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. The deadline to submit your pre-registration information is before that. Watch your email after you sign up. Come grow with us and find a community where you belong. That's coachingrewired.com. All right, we are back. All right, Lorin. So how long have you been in business now with your tattoo business?
I opened my very first private studio space in January of 2021 after taking about a year off. And over that time, I spent a lot of time looking at how I wanted to construct my environment. And I had a lot to go on after visiting, 25 different tattoo studios. The value in that kind of hit me while I was in it, like from the time that I decided I wanted to be a tattooer, part of that was because I'd always wanted to travel. And I saw that there was an opportunity to travel as a tattooer. And in fact, that is deeply rooted in American traditional tattooing. There's a history in actually circuses, and there were traveling tattooers that would travel with the circus doing their work. So that was a dream of mine, was to just travel the country, travel the world tattooing. So I saw so many different shops, so many different studios, met so many amazing artists, and nobody does it the same way. In all these different environments, I started kind of like taking notes and going like, oh, I like the way they do this. The way they do that doesn't work for me. And all the while, I'm kind of like putting this all aside for later, thinking like, okay, I can take all this information, all this data that I'm gathering to kind of construct my own ideal space in the future.
Can I ask you on a very tactical level, how were you capturing this information? You said you were taking notes.
So I love to journal. But there was also just, we returned to a lot of the same shops. I would think like, oh, I really like this studio's waiting area. I like this comfortable space that they've created for their clients. I think it really does something to neutralize anxiety that is inevitable for a lot of people when they come in to get a tattoo. So a lot of it was stuff that I was taking notes for the future, for how I wanted my client's experience to be. And then other pieces were, what the actual tattoo work environment looked like for the tattooers. Some shops would have these like sort of open bays where you'd have like 5 to 10 tattooers all in the same space, and it was chaotic and loud. And that's really fun for some people, and it's really terrible for others. And I am a member of the latter group. So,
that would not work for me.
No, it's so much distraction, and it can be fun at times, but it's not a great work environment for me because of my struggles with sensory overwhelm and being easily distracted.
And I think what you said too is so important, that it wasn't a good environment for you. Because it's like, because you're absolutely, some people probably would thrive in that sort of chaotic environment with lots of noise and stimulation and not get overwhelmed. But if you find that that kind of environment overwhelms you, I mean, the last time I was employed by someone else, the staff room where all the clinicians were, it was like a big room that had a bunch of desks that kind of just in a circle facing the walls. But it was like, I couldn't make phone calls in there. I couldn't write in there. Like, because if someone else was talking, all bets are off. Like, I can't filter that out.
No, I can totally relate to that. And I can't overstate the value of widening my perspective by going around and traveling, because in the studio where I started, it was sort of that open floor plan, and it was pretty chaotic. It was a walk-in shop, and I struggled so much. I had such a hard time in there. I'm looking around at my coworkers going, no one else is having a problem with this. Like, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I can't be a tattooer. And I came close to quitting many, many times. It hurts my heart thinking about that now, because I am a great tattooer. I just really needed the right environment. So going around and seeing all the different ways it could be done, and that there wasn't just one right way, that made me realize like, oh, I just need to do it differently. The way that this isn't wrong. It's just not right for me. So I needed to try a lot of different things to find out what was right for me.
I think a lot of people who are in on the entrepreneurial journey at various points in the journey, stuff can get really hard and it can be really discouraging. And that feeling of, am I cut out for this? I think it's a real, that impostor syndrome, right? What was it for you that helped you stay the course, stay with it?
First, it really helped me to learn that imposter syndrome is a thing that any working creative who is self-aware has, and it's not a thing that goes away. as I was traveling and talking with different tattooers, I recall specifically talking to another tattooer who happened to be a woman who'd been tattooing for 10 years. And I asked her, at what point did you start feeling like you knew what you were doing? And she was like, never. And I was both horrified in the moment and then relieved to hear that, because looking at her work, to me, it was like, she knows what she's doing. Her work is incredible. She makes it look so easy and she's so confident. She was a person like I aspired to be like her. And then to hear that she still feels that uncertainty, it was like, oh, this is normal what I'm experiencing. It means like I'm on the right path, like it's fine. So
yeah, so not struggling alone, basically, and sharing what you're going through and naming it. I think the idea of we can tame it when we can name it.
Absolutely, and I think that really underlines the importance of community, and I think that's important for any human being. But it's so important for creatives, because as creatives, we have heroes. We have people that we look to that have made it. They're doing it. And we see this like beautiful work that they do and they make it look so easy. What we don't see is the years and years and years that they struggled. We don't see that.
Right.
I don't think that this is an experience that is exclusive to ADHD, but I'm definitely a person who does not like to not be good at something. And oftentimes if I sit down and I feel like I don't have like a proclivity towards something right away, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. It's like not enough dopamine right off the bat,
that is a, whether or not it's specifically an ADHD thing, I'm not actually sure. I do know that is there's a high correlation with people who are gifted.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. That sounds right to me.
Because it's like so many things comes like so naturally and easily without any effort. It's like, wait a minute, why is this hard? And and I think that is one of the biggest challenges, emotional challenges that people who have giftedness experience. And I see that with my son. Gifted is a horrible name for what it is. Giftedness sounds like it's like that reverse stigma of like, oh, you're bragging. It's like, oh no, this is not what that is.
You're so right. I definitely see that across the course of my life to now is like, I skated through high school so easily in so many things, just kind of sliding into home base at the last second. And then when it came time to go to college, like that didn't work anymore. And I was devastated. I had to learn how to push through doing really hard things. Like not everything was going to be instantly easy or attainable. And tattooing was just the ultimate lesson in that, like from the first tattoo that I did, it was just like, boom, heart sank, like, oh, I'm not going to be good at this for a really long time. But it's one of those things like I've been doing it for 8 years now and I feel really proud of my work. And it's so important to take a step back and go like, look at all this hard work that I did and look at, the first tattoo I did to now. And it's like, stop and give yourself some credit once in a while.
Do you have that automatic thought when someone's giving you that sort of positive feedback that you're like, oh, they're just being nice? Do you experience that?
I think less and less. That was definitely a thing that I used to do a lot in the past.
It's because you're in year 8 now, in year 8, like that, some of that head junk starts to diminish. I'm totally making that up. I have no idea if that's true or not.
But I think it does I think it can, and learning about imposter syndrome has been key in that. And also communing with peers.
Yeah.
The environment in which I started, we were all very siloed and there was a lot of like not wanting to share information and it was very like competitive and there was definitely a scarcity mindset. But I think the environment that I am so privileged to be in now in Portland, there is so much more of a collectivistic attitude and there's more collaboration and more community support. And we're happy to refer clients back and forth, compliment each other. And there's so much value in that. I can't emphasize it enough, to like lift other people up. The times that I've made giant leaps forward in my tattoo practice, in my art practice. And personally, it's because I've spent time with people that I admire and was maybe really scared to be in proximity with, because it's like, oh, I don't want them to watch me work, like they're going to see that I'm a hack. But in reality, they're like wonderful, down to earth people who experience a lot of the same struggles that I have.
Let's talk a little bit about time perception. So this was something that you said you wanted some coaching around.
Yes.
So lay it out for us. Where do you find your biggest struggles are with time perception?
This is something that has plagued me my entire life. I just don't know where time goes. I can completely earnestly say that I'm going to go run to the grocery store and I'll be back in 30 minutes. And I don't return for 3 hours. And so that can get hairy with work. I think it's much less of a thing with work than it is in my personal life. But, I'm so optimistic about how long something is going to take me. And it's like, how do I bridge that gap? How do I would love any tips that you have on time perception challenges.
All right. You bet. Because this is something that I have spent so much time working on and will probably be working on for the rest of my life. So I think we can be time blind and time wise at the very same time. So my first question for you, I noticed as you were sort of lifting your arm, taking a drink there, I didn't see any watch on your wrist. Do you ever wear a watch?
I have an Apple Watch.
Do you ever put it on?
A lot of this, this has been one of the greatest tools that I have found so far to keep track of how long things really are taking me. So, if I set a session limit for like 3 hours, I'm frequently checking to see where I'm at. I guess that's a good tool for me. Using maybe the data that I can collect from that to figure out how long things realistically do take me. I think that's where I need some support or tool or workaround.
Okay, so when we talk about this difference between being sort of smart and being wise, wisdom comes from lived experience, right? And so the piece where we need to develop wisdom around is not just the learning how long things take, but learning how long we think things take, and then actually seeing how long it actually took, and then really cueing into what our gut tells us. Not that our gut is wrong. We just need to decode what our gut is telling us based on our past experiences. For example, especially if it's something that's like new or novel, I know it's probably going to take even longer than what I think. What I do is I kind of walk through this process of, maybe 30 minutes this thing will take. I guess it could take 45 minutes. I guess it's possible an hour, but unlikely. Could it take 2 hours? No way it's going to take 2 hours. Then I estimate 2 hours. I get right to that point where I'm like, no way is it going to take that. That's typically how long it will take.
Ooh, I like that.
Right.
Because I go through that process.
And so part of it's very humble. It is, I'm regularly humbled by, doing this time prediction. But I think it's, start with the knowables. There's a lot of things that we have in our life that is absolutely knowable for how long it takes us. We just don't know it yet because we haven't really paid that clear attention to it. So starting with things around your routines in your day, like how long do you think it takes you from the time you're ready to get out of bed to actually having breakfast or doing your taking a shower? How long does it take you from the time you're like, okay, I need to leave my house to actually leaving? For me, it's somewhere between 7 to 13 minutes. I don't understand it. It just takes that long, right?
It's so specific.
And it is. And it's when you can learn that and you're like, oh, okay, so nothing actually ever takes me 5 minutes. You can sort of make peace with that. And I think that one of the top lies we tell ourselves and believe is that it'll just take 5 minutes, right? So I have time for just
I tell that lie all day, every
all
day.
day long. I still do it. And I'm like, and I call it a red flag thought. I view it as when I catch myself saying it, I pause, I laugh because I know I've done this 1,000 times now. This is not going to take me 5 minutes, right? So I think that applying that, how long do I think this tattoo will take? So definitely start with that. It would be, I think, really interesting if you could set up a camera that is taking a video in time lapse that has a clock or time that's part of the image that's on the video to actually see where you are as time has elapsed. Right. So how far did you get in 30 minutes into this tattoo? How long did you get in an hour into this tattoo? Because you're going to see it in about 5 seconds, 30 minutes. And it can be really, really eye-opening. The other thing that is really eye-opening about doing time-lapse video to sort of see like where does time go is the inefficiencies that we often have in moving through our space. Right? Because I feel like every time we move through our physical environment, we are navigating through the world of distraction. And there is opportunity to just get derailed by the smallest little thing. And all those little things really significantly add up.
Absolutely. I love that. And I actually learned about that by an amazing content creator with ADHD. And I know that you've talked about her on your show before, but she talks about point of performance. And
talking about Jessica McCabe?
Yes, that's her. Absolutely. So one thing that I've implemented is I have a cart with everything I need to set up my workstation. So when it's time to set up my workstation, I just roll it over and I don't have to walk away from my station for anything. Because if I have to walk to the cabinet to grab something, I'm going to reorganize the cabinet or I'm going to water my plants or any number of things. And the next thing you know, it's taken me an hour to set up my station instead of 5 minutes. So yeah, you're so right about that.
It's funny. It was a night or two ago. I was on a Zoom meeting. I was at home talking to my other coaches on my team, and the water in the kitchen gets hotter faster than in the bathroom. So I always just go to the kitchen to wash my hands. And then I started making a snack, and then I realized, oh, I'm still in this meeting.
Oh no.
I was like, whoops.
That's
so
level.
It's so easy to get derailed, but that's awesome. That I love how you said you're doing that setup. What about even things like your other variables in your environment, like lighting, music? Do you find that those kinds of things might affect how long things take you?
Those are things that I specifically set up to support me in the studio, because it was definitely a thing in the past where I would work in other tattoo shops where there'd be really loud metal music playing. And I just couldn't focus with that going on. Also, it's who wants to get tattooed with this really aggressive music going on? People are in pain. They don't want to listen to that. So it's very much a thing in the studio that the music is chill.
Nice.
So.
I visited my one of my college friends earlier in the year who's a tattoo artist, and his studios definitely had the heavy metal music playing, and I was just like, I'm afraid here. I mean, it was just oh my gosh, it's intense. It is an intense energy.
Yeah, and getting tattooed is already scary for a lot of people, so you don't want to make it worse.
So I forgot to take a second break, so we're going to jump in right now and take a quick break. Support for ADHD Rewired comes from Adult Study Hall at adultstudyhall.com. From our weekly guided sessions known as ASH Plus, or ASH's Adult Study Hall, to our 24/7 drop-in room. This just might be the virtual community you didn't even know you needed. And it's only $19.99 a month, and it's free to try for the first week. If you're motivated by working with others who are working on the same thing you are, you can join our themed and guided sessions or our ASH Plus sessions for decluttering, writing, taking care of our finances, working out, creating, and weekly check-ins. We also have our career-focused weekly sessions led by our very own coach, Kat Hoyer. I was talking to Kat yesterday, and she told me that I think 3 people just came back to report that they got job offers this week based on the work that they were doing with Kat in our ASH Plus session. Also, I will be hosting our next Pomodoro dance party on Wednesday, May 25th at 2:15 Central. That's 12:15 Pacific, 3:15 Eastern. We go about 2.5 hours, and it is super fun. And if you prefer to work at your own pace, but still the good company of all other people, then pop into our 24/7 drop-in room, ASH 24/7. It's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Join the virtual co-working community created just for us by going to adultstudyhall.com. Give it a try. It is free for the first week and only $19.99 a month after that. That's adultstudyhall.com. Support for ADHD Rewired comes from our Patreon community. If you want to support the show and grab some extra perks, then consider becoming a patron over at ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. Support can start at any amount, and perks start at just $5 a month, where you can get ad-free episodes of this show in your very own patron-only podcast feed. And you can join me today and every fourth Tuesday of the month for only $25 a month for our patron-only monthly coaching call. Our next one is today, Tuesday, May 24th at 3 p.m. Central. If you miss this one, we do this every fourth Tuesday of the month at 3 p.m. Central. That's 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. If you miss our Patreon coaching call or the $10 a month range is more in your budget, you can get the audio recording of our monthly coaching calls and our ad-free episodes from our private podcast feed, and get even more value as a patron and get 1 month free when you choose to pay for a year at a time instead of going month to month. No matter your contribution, I am really grateful for your support. And if you're able to right now, if it's in the cards for you, consider becoming a patron. Our numbers have been down a little bit recently, so your support would really help us continue with the work that we are doing here. Your support helps us reach more ADHD brains, because we want all of our ADHD friends around the world to know that you are not alone. Consider becoming a patron and find all of the perks at ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. That's ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. And thanks. So do you see the timer that I have behind me? It's the time timer.
Yes, a time timer. Big fan.
So, I wonder too if having something like that and having like big clocks, like in your space, do you have a clock on every wall?
I do not. That's not a thing I have. I do have a time timer, and I use that to remind me to take breaks, because I'll sit and I'll tattoo for hours and I won't eat and I won't take care of myself. So, I have that time timer like down on my workstation, and it reminds me like after an hour, we're going to get up and stretch and we're going to have water. And so I'm utilizing that, but I think clocks could help.
There was when I was sort of a new clinician and I was really needing to sort of monitor my time for a therapy hour. And, when you're new and doing that work and you have ADHD, it's like, what? The hour's up, right? I had this tool. I'm trying to remember what it was called. It's like a time minder, maybe. It was like a little pager. I remember old school pagers, like before cell phones. So it looked like this little pager, and I had this function on there where it's called a meeting timer, and it vibrated. And so I could set it for 50 minutes, which was the therapy hour. And what it would do is it would give you like 2 vibrations when you're at the halfway points, then like another like specific sort of signal vibration with 5 minutes left, and then when you're done. So it was like, I think that helped me sort of feel that passage of time a lot better.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah,
just kind of marking like this much time has passed, Yeah, I like that.
And even think about like, and so few communities I think have this now, is like the hourly church bell chimes, right? Like I remember growing up and being able to hear that in my neighborhood. And I always thought it was cool. I never really thought of it as like, oh, this is like a good way to actually track where you are in the day. I know on the app Insight Timer, the timer where you can have a repeating like bell, like you can set it up to have a bell every 15 minutes throughout the entire day. And it's a pleasant chime. It's just kind of this like cues you to be kind of mindful. And so I think anything that you can do to really sort of cue yourself to keep paying attention to time. It's not, one of the challenges, especially when you're doing creative work, is you get in the flow. And when you get in, part of flow is timelessness, right?
Yeah.
Which is a wonderful, like emotional experience. Like it's it's everything our brain and body like loves, right? But then when you're like, holy crap, it's been 4 hours. Like it seems like it's been 30 minutes, because that can affect the rest of your day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are some other things that other tools that maybe you have available to you right now, that can sort of give you that frequent signaling of how long something has been?
Kind of blanking on that one. I obviously I have the time timer. I've got the Apple Watch.
How do you use your Apple Watch for time?
Well, when I start a tattoo, I start a stopwatch.
Okay. So it starts at 0, goes up.
Right. Because when I do like large scale or custom work, it's by the hour. So I'm tracking, how much time I'm spending working doing that. And then I'll also use the time timer app on the watch to signal me to take a break and feed myself. So there's that. That's useful. I wonder if there's a way to set up the little haptic alerts at time intervals, because that I've found has been like a really useful tool when driving and using GPS. When the Apple Watch will give you the little haptic tap on your wrist to say, hey, pay attention to your GPS. I am late so much less often because of that, because I'm not missing my exits or my turns. It's such a wonderful tool.
It is not just you. Oh my gosh. Like what neuroscience tells us about learning is that when we write things down, it helps encode it better in our brain. Mm-hmm. So it could be like easy to say, oh, okay, I guess this thing would take me 30 minutes. It took an hour and a half. Okay, I got it. Don't end it there. Actually write down how long you thought that task would take you and how long it actually took you, and repeat the same types of tasks, because you don't want to just like predict and track for that task one time. You want to get some reliability in there. And, so let's say there's the same task, and let's say one day it took you an hour, another day it took you 45 minutes, another day it took you an hour and a half. Plan for an hour and a half. Always.
Right. I love that. And recently I've been kind of trying to implement this mantra that it promise less and possibly deliver more.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So if I say it takes longer, then I think it's going to, and it takes less time, fantastic. Like that's great for everybody, but I don't want to be upsetting people by taking 5 times longer than I think.
Because for me, it's like I need to see time in sight all the time because I'm time blind, right? Like I'm completely oh my God, it's 10 to 4 right now. Like what? How did that happen? Right? So like in every wall of my office, I have clocks. I have clocks on my screen. There's no place in my office where I work where I don't see time, right? So kind of setting up your environment that way. I'm even wondering if there's like small, I don't know if does a small grandfather clock sound like an oxymoron? I think it does. But like a physical clock that will chime on the hour.
Like a cuckoo clock.
A cuckoo clock. Yeah, I'm sure that there are all kinds of things that you can put in your environment that can also be fun. There's a timer called the Time Tracker Mini. I'm going to show it to you. I'm like, this is great for podcasting. Hold on. Okay, so it's going to be not show and tell, but tell and tell, because this is a podcast. Okay, so I'm going to try to describe it to the best I can. It looks kind of like, I don't know, like R2-D2. Mm-hmm. So this Time Tracker Mini, it's about, 6 inches high. The top looks like it's a clear dome, and there's these 2 dials on here. So on this green dial, so let's say you have an hour-long appointment with someone. So you turn the green dial to the 60 for an hour because it's in 5-minute increments. And then let's say you all right, I need a 15-minute warning for my transition time. So then you would set the yellow dial, you can hear it clicking, to 45 minutes. So as soon as you set this and you hit the green button, this top will turn green. At the 45-minute mark, it will start flashing and it will stay flashing, right? And then with a few minutes left, it'll blink red and it'll have a little audible sound. So that's one kind of cool timer. And this one can go up to 2 hours.
Right.
As far as what do you think for you would be the best way to actually track the time, to create a time log?
I think if there were a way for me to sort of auto save data that I'm collecting. Mm-hmm. So, if I'm timing something with a stopwatch and then ending a session, having that saved somewhere so I could go back to it later and see, how long I thought it was going to take, how long it actually took, and to do a comparison.
So to me, I'm hearing about the analysis of that data. What about the capturing of the data?
Right. I guess that's part of it. Something that would capture it and allow me to analyze it.
Are you looking for something? Because I'm not sure if you're looking for something that's automated or something that can do both parts of it.
Probably both. Okay. I just haven't come across it yet.
Okay. And the reason I ask is especially when you're really wanting to dig into this, making it a little bit more manual, I think is actually can be really helpful, right? Because it's like we got this cool tool to automate it, so we don't have to think about it. The whole idea is we're trying to change how we think about it, right? In my coaching groups, we use these time logs. We report on them every week. So I encourage people to get a clipboard, a stopwatch, get a pen, attach them all to each other so they're always together. And so it's really easy to just quickly, like, here's a task, here's how long I thought it would take. You could also do that on a calendar, right? You actually are doing time blocking for how long you think the task will take you. So you put it specifically on the calendar for how long you think it'll take, and then record how long it took. So you can even add, instead of editing it, you can add to that event, like, or add a second one that's kind of right next to it, your prediction calendar time and then your actual calendar time. And then you can sort of see that side by side.
Right. And I've already got, notes in Google Calendar of, what the client and their appointment time and what I'm tattooing. It's just one extra step to maybe go in and put a note saying, like, how long I think it should take, air quotes, and then go in later and say actual, this is how long it really did take.
I know there's a timer that I keep looking on Amazon that it almost looks like a desk version of like a clock that you would see in like a gym, like a school gym, so it's got like the LED kind of light, but it's got a big display. And so I think it would kind of look cool, which, I think that's actually kind of important to, like, because it sort of says, like, hey, time's important. So I'm going to have it all around me, and I kind of want it to look cool, right? I've seen those for about $80. I feel like it is, yes, there is a rabbit hole of time tools you can find on Amazon, but I think when you're really trying to figure this out, those are worthwhile investments, even if they don't all work for you. If you're like, that was kind of a gimmicky thing. Like, have you ever seen the time cube?
I haven't, no.
I got that one here somewhere. I'm going to do another tell and tell.
Sure.
Oh, here it is. All right. So it looks like a cube. So it's about, 2 inches by 2 inches, I think. And if you can kind of hear, I think there's like a ping pong ball inside of it with something that's probably a sensor that is very like light. So on the bottom, there is turn it on. It has a little timer on it. And there's different cubes that have different time intervals. So 0's on top. That means it's off. On this one, you have the 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes. So if I want to do a 60-minute timer, all I have to do is do that. So I just flipped it up so the 60 is facing up, and now it's set.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, and so they have a bunch of ones. They have one that's like 1, 3, 5, and 10 minutes. There's ones that are longer, shorter. And they're kind of cute. They're fun.
Yeah.
All right, because we want things that are easy. Anything that's like requires like you to hold the 2 buttons for 3 seconds and like that is not ADHD friendly.
Right.
Like on your Apple Watch, do you have the stopwatch on one of the, what are they called, the complications, like on your home screen, or do you have to like dig through it to find the stopwatch?
No, it's just right there.
Good.
I just like press the button and it's right there. Like, yeah, I definitely know, like, I need it to be as accessible and visible as possible if I'm actually going to use something.
Awesome. So let's get really specific. How are you going to apply what we just talked about as far as building that time awareness?
I think the most realistic and helpful thing that I could take is, first of all, getting clocks on the wall in my studio. And just being able to like glance at that and refer to it, I think would make a big difference. And also, I think like logging my projected time and my actual time, whether, that takes me getting like a fun little notebook because I do love to write. Or, if I integrate that into a part of my scheduling calendar process, just adding that into notes, I think those two things combined could definitely make improvements.
Awesome. You said that you were kind of sensitive to your environment. The sound of a ticking clock drives me crazy. So when you're searching for clocks, so use the term silent sweep, because otherwise it's like you'd be hearing ticking like everywhere and you'd be like, oh my God, I'm going to go crazy. Also, if you find a clock that has a glass face, you can use dry erase marker on it. And you can even like draw like, all right, so here's how long my appointment is. And so you can glance up and see like, here's my start time, here's my end time, and see kind of where you are sort of in time as you're going.
Oh, I like that. I would have never thought of that.
That was something I saw from a conference on social thinking. And I was like, wow, that is really cool. And these are tools, like you can get a $20 silent sweep clock at Amazon. And I'll get a link to some of these tools on on the show notes for this episode. So Lorin, 2 things. So if anyone happens to live in the Portland area and is looking for a tattoo, how do they reach you? And then is there anything else you want to share?
So, I'm most active on Instagram, and my handle is just Lorin Devine, and that's LorinDevine. And there's lots and lots of information on my website, which is www.lorindevine.com. And there's information about booking there, as well as my portfolio and some more information about me. And I think that if there's anything that I could share with your listeners, it's that if you are a creative and you're trying to make it your work, don't worry so much about comparing yourself to others and how other people are doing things. I used to really beat my head against the wall going like, why can't I do it the way that everyone around me is? And that was not helpful to me in any way. You know, things started really going in a positive direction when I made more of an effort to ignore that and go, what is the best way for me? That has grown my client base. It's made my art better. I have more energy for creativity. It's just the way to go. And dig into community. Like, don't isolate yourself. Connect with people who are doing what you want to do and keep trying different things. If one thing doesn't work, don't give up. Keep trying.
That's the way of growth, you know, and I absolutely echo the idea of growth through community, because that's exactly what we do here. Lorin Devine, thank you so much for your time. This was a lot of fun, and I wish you the ongoing continued success, and I hope you have a good time. It was really bad. I knew it was bad when I was going to say it, and I just had to let it out. But yes, thank you for what you shared, and this is a lot of fun. So best of luck to you, and feel free to keep me updated as you work on this time tracking.
It's been a pleasure.
This is Eric Tivers. Thank you for listening, and congratulations for making it to the end. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. We are a community focused on learning, growing, and connection. The website is ADHDrewired.com. You can find time-stamped summaries and additional resources for each episode. Apply to join our free and secret Facebook community. Learn more about our award-winning intensive online video-based coaching and accountability groups. Join the Adult Study Hall virtual co-working membership community. Find all the other podcasts on the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network. Sign up for my email newsletter to get exclusive content that you won't hear anywhere else. And use the search tool to find episodes on specific topics. You can do all of this at ADHDrewired.com. While you're there, click on the Patreon button. If you are a regular listener, consider making a monthly contribution by becoming a patron. If you are able to financially support my work, it would mean a lot. This show is free to you, the listener, but it's not free to produce. Plus, patrons get cool perks like ad-free episodes and access to recordings of coaching calls, and $25 a month patrons can join me once a month for a group coaching call. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Tivers. You can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/ADHD Rewired. If you're a coach, therapist, or related professional, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/Eric Tivers. Subscribe to ADHD Rewired on YouTube to see selective interviews and other videos I've made. Podcasts change lives. You can make a difference in someone's life by spreading the word about this podcast. Mention it in your online communities on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, or wherever you hang out online. And be sure to share it with your friends, family, your therapists, your coaches, doctors, siblings, parents. And if you, your coach, therapist, doctor, or ADHD support group leader would like a pack of podcast postcards to hand out, you can request those at the website, ADHDrewired.com. If you are a member of CHAD, ADA, or any other ADHD support group, please be sure to tell them about this show and all the shows on the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network. You can even show them how to download it on their phone. And if you really loved this particular episode, please hit share on your podcast player. I'm only one person, and I do count on you to help spread this message. One of the biggest things that you can do to support this podcast and help other people discover it is to leave an honest rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other app that supports reviews. And don't forget to hit subscribe so new episodes are automatically pushed to your favorite podcast app. Looking for more ways to listen and learn? Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at Audible by going to audibletrial.com/ADHD Rewired. Here is my list of must-listen-to audiobooks updated July 2021. Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Attached by Amir Levin and Rachel Heller. Atomic Habits by James Clear. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. Crucial Conversations by Carrie Patterson. The Coaching Habit by Michael Stainer. The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk. Rest by Alex Sujong Kim Pang. The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. Make It Stick. The Science of Successful Learning by Peter Brown. The Productivity Project by Chris Bailey. Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics by Dan Harris. Change Your Questions, Change Your Life by Marilee G. Adams. I always recommend to my coaches and admin that they read that book. The One Thing by Gary Keller, a required reading for all of our coaching group members. Procrastinate on Purpose by Rory Baden. The 4 Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer. And if you're looking for something a little bit more magical, I have fallen in love with the Harry Potter series, and the narrator, Jim Dale, is amazing. And of course, if you haven't yet boarded the Brene Brown bus, all of her stuff is great, starting with Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, Rising Strong, and The Power of Vulnerability. And if you're an entrepreneur or leader, be sure to check out her book, Dare to Lead. Do you have something that you would like to share? Click on the podcast tab at ADHD Rewired. Click the button to be a guest at the top of the page and schedule a 15-minute interview. This is Eric Tibbers, reminding you to keep learning, growing, and connecting. Self-care is not selfish. No matter what you get done or don't get done, you are still enough. And no matter how hard it feels, we can do hard things. And we don't need to do them in the hardest way possible. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next week.